What's going on at Watford? Because it looks like Claudio Ranieri will this week join a very long list of managers who've arrived, tried and gone. What's going on at the club? Bob's a big Watford fan. Bob, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Morning, Bob. What's your take on this? Is Ranieri as good as gone then?
Yeah. Also, I want these owners gone. I know Simon always says, be careful what you wish for. But these owners, I feel, have made my club the laughingstock of English football by having 3 or 4 managers every season. It's just beyond a joke now. And I just want them gone. Put the club up for sale and see where we go.
Who do you want back? Lawrence Bassini? Because he didn't make you a laughingstock, did he?
No. But yeah, of course he did. Of course he did. And ever since Elton John's gone, it's been that way.
Yeah, but Elton John never put a penny in the club. I mean, you guys live under this myth that Elton John bankrolled the football club, and he didn't. I sat there watching Watford, and I'm trying to think of the other chairman that was around in the mid-2000s, Graham something, and I watched the club struggle. You beat us in the playoffs at Palace in 2006 with Eddie Boothroyd, went up and finished bottom of the league with 5 wins. You had ownership models that have never really invested huge amounts of money in a football club. So whilst you don't like the operations of the Pozzo, you tell me a regime that's done better for Watford than the mid-80s when Graham Taylor was there.
Well, that's what I was coming to. I'm fed up with changing managers and getting managers that most people in this country have never heard of. It's beyond a joke now. It is beyond a joke. We are the laughingstock of English football.
So
I don't expect any owner to go out and spend 20-30 million on a player. We don't expect that. But what we do expect is that we don't go buying players in the pound shop, and that is why where we are. I mean,
Bob's got a point, Danny, to an extent. Vladimir Ivic came in August 2020, went in December. I mean, the list before him is lengthy.
So can I just... Some of those guys, you can't do anything about Jukanovic. Okay. You can't do anything about Marco Silva, because Marco Silva was going great guns, and all of a sudden, what did he do? Become a treacherous wretch and went off somewhere else.
But if we're talking about success, and we, as a football club, and what fans want, I think what I'm hearing you say is that forget whether it's Championship or lower end of the Premier League. What you're talking about is having a more stable structure where you can start relating to players over time and a manager and build up some adoration, rather than this turnstile of players and turnstile of managers and never building up a rapport with the team, the manager or the players. Yeah. And I think fans quite want that. Although there might be a majority. I mean, I've been on this same show talking to Watford fans who are very happy with the owners. I mean, I remember that conversation. Me too. So maybe it's a mixed bag. Maybe we'll have other Watford fans coming on and saying they're happy with the way it is.
Bob, before you go, if he goes, mate, who do you want?
I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue anymore. But what decent manager would come and work for these owners? I don't know of a decent manager.
Probably need David Blaine and Dynamo coming in to fix.
That is why we are the laughing stock.
Yeah, but you've also got the flip side of the argument, Bob, and I'm not trying to be contrarian for the purpose of this conversation. You've got Claudio Ranieri that's come in. He's had 12 games. He's done nothing. What are you supposed to do as an owner? Just sit back and go, oh, that's fine then. 12 games in, you come.
You hit the nail on the head before the break. You said he'd done nothing at Fulham.
He did, yeah. So it's a bad appointment from the outset.
It was a bad appointment.
Yeah, and who's to blame for that? The
Why bring him in?
Yeah.
Nobody really thought it was the answer. Nobody. I know it's easy with hindsight saying, so what were they doing? But it was a strange one. Really was.
It was. I mean, Bob, listen, thanks for the call. I can totally understand when you see the list, Simon. The list is ridiculous.
I mean, the strangest one of the lot, I have to confess, going on a different tact, is Nigel Pearson a couple of years ago.
But then taking him away with 2 games to go.
Yeah, but you also got to remember that Nigel Pearson is quite a confrontational character, and he's had his issues with owners. He had his issues with owners at Leicester. Yeah. So sometimes owners are just not going to have managers getting above their station. I'm not suggesting that's the right way to go, because you should let managers do precisely what they want, say what they want, how they want, when they want. And that's what they do, and some owners are not going to put up with that. But to take Nigel Pearson out at a time when they weren't great, because they had a real bounce and they'd lost their way again, and then Pearson getting binned 2 games out. Hayden Mullins is not a manager. He was a caretaker manager, so using him in the statistics twice is probably not a fair analogy.
It is fair. He was in there and he did a job on 2 occasions.
Hayden Mullins was a player that played for me, and he's never a manager. He's just a coach that was holding the fort.
No, he was there on caretaker. You're right. He was there on a caretaker basis,
holding the fort for Everton.
Yeah, but he's still a statistic, an irrelevant one. How can the Pozzos have any degree of credibility this morning? Look, give me that again.
Because they're in the Premier League, like 72.
When they sack Ranieri, that will be the 3rd manager in 5 months.
Okay.
Now, do me a favour. If you're a Watford fan and you've had the decency to buy a season ticket for yourself and spend your good money, no doubt, not only there but in the supporters' shop, you are damn right to be asking questions of this lot.
Of course you are. And ultimately, that's a fan's prerogative.
Their credibility is shot.
But the fans will do the same thing, which is ultimately, when they don't like something, they'll decide it's enough.
Yeah, but do you admit the Pozzos are really in the process of mucking this up?
Mucking what up? Do Watford have a God-given right to be in the Premier League? They're probably there's teams like Nottingham Forest and far bigger clubs in the Championship would look at Watford and go, "I'll take that every day."
Yeah, but you just mentioned Nottingham Forest. Steve Cooper was available. Why, in the middle of all these deals that the Pozzos have done, did Steve Cooper not somehow feature at Watford?
I'll tell you why. Because Watford had got promoted under a certain manager that was going okay. So when Steve Cooper was taken to Nottingham Forest, at that particular time, I don't think Watford were looking at a situation that was as critical as it possibly is now.
But Bob raised it, Simon. What manager would want to work with the Pozzos?
The next one that comes through the door.
Knowing what they're like. Because you walk in there, unless by some miracle you begin to string some results together, you're the next statistic.
But why is it a miracle? Okay, we're sitting here discussing Ranieri as a potential casualty. And why is that? Because of the Pozzos? Or is it because Ranieri hasn't done the job properly? Now, the first argument is the most salient one, which is never employ him in the first place. But when you've employed him and he's won no games or one game out of the first 12, you're now sitting in a bugger's muddle, aren't you? Well, because he's going to be a statistic because of his performance.
You're also looking at the previous manager who had a better record than Ranieri. You could argue if they'd left him in charge, they could be sitting in a better position.
Yes. Yeah.
So is it quality of the players? Is it managerial? It's a bit of both. The argument is more about the structure of the club and why they keep rotating managers and players, because that's just the way they've done it and how they've got success. So they're not going to change it. So unfortunately, I think they're going to have to live with it.
Yeah. I mean, constant instability presumably makes it impossible for Watford to survive in the Premier League.
Well, it doesn't, because they have survived under that
regime.
Yeah, regime. And a bit like Chelsea, when you look at the amount of managers Chelsea have had, which doesn't really coincide with the narrative of stability and managers given time at the top clubs to become successful, because they've had success.
I mean, Ranieri's come in off the back of the Sampdoria job where he's done a decent job. Okay, Ranieri's come off the back of two other jobs where after Fulham he's gone and done decent jobs. He himself knows and talks about it regularly that in Italian football, where these guys originate from, they change managers like they change their hair shampoo.
Yeah.
So it's not an irregularity that people don't understand.
It doesn't make it right.
Well, it doesn't make it wrong either, because what you're asking
I've
for...
not seen much right with the Pozzos.
Okay, so we've got Everton that have had managers in place they've given time to. They gave Carlo Ancelotti 18 months. He spent significant amount of money, not hundreds of millions of pounds. And where are Everton? They're three places above Everton. 2 places above Watford, sorry. Yeah. So you look at it and say, okay, at this moment in time, Ranieri is a bad appointment, but... What was the alternative? They look at the situation and they manage it in short term bite-sized chunks. We sit here and football wisdom says you must give somebody stability. They must have a passage of time. No other business says that if somebody does a job for 6 months or a year and it still stinks, that stability is the right answer. Only football, because it's a self-perpetuating myth.
Well, also,
that
it's not a myth.
Itself.
It's not a myth. I mean, the most successful clubs in history have had stability and similar squads and managers over a period of time.
Because they've had a level of... Because you can see it. You can see what people are building. I've stuck with managers that have been looking like they're going... But you can see it. If you're sitting behind the scenes where you've got real vision and you can see nothing's changing. The results on the pitch are getting worse. The results off the pitch everywhere around the club are not getting any better. So you're looking at a 360-degree vantage point and you're going, hang on a second, you've had 6 months to change everything. The culture's no different.
Yeah, then you get rid. No, I get that.
And that's the viewpoint that the Pozzos have.
Yeah, but I'm not
saying it's right. I'm saying there is an explanation to everything.
I'm just explaining why in football generally, I think the view of most supporters is that because of history and because of the most...
If it's going the right way, Dan.
Yeah, but stability is generally the way you get success.
If it's going
the right way. There are exceptions
to
to the rule. Of course.
So you have to see something.
You wouldn't leave it.
Nothing. Pardon? So your answer is stability is a good thing, right? But if you've got somebody in place, like Klopp stays in place for Liverpool for a certain amount of time before he wins something, but they were going the right way, you could see it on and off the pitch. If you've got somebody that's going nowhere near the right way, then what's the point of stability for that position?
But the argument then goes down to the time.
In what
what's
direction
the window?
should Watford be going?
Well, look, I mean, the argument is, what do you expect from Watford? unless the owners are going to turn around and spend 50, 60, 70 million pounds every time they land in the Premier League,
Maybe
which
more.
most of them don't, and maybe more, then you're going to have this situation where they constantly achieve something for Watford that other clubs would really want. Watford are not an established Premier League club. They have no right to be there more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Right? Matthew Benham spends more on Brentford than people spend at Watford. So you've got to look at it honestly and objectively and say, well, what do we expect? We're third from bottom. Burnley are bottom of the league. And Burnley have been established in the Premier League for the last 5 or 6 years. So what's the argument for Burnley then?
So what's the argument for a new manager then at Watford?
Because clearly this guy, if you look at Danny's point, the most salient point that Danny made at the beginning was, if you're saying this 12 games in, wow, you really are in a situation where you should have fixed this 6-7 games ago, because that conversation needed to have been had in those terms 6 or 7 games ago. And now you're saying it now, it looks
Too
like
late,
you've got no control over the direction of travel that you're going in.
Yeah.
So where they go now, oh, well, look, who wants to come in and do the job in the short term? Somebody will. Somebody will be prepared to do it. Like everyone was prepared to sign Paul Gascoigne or George Best or whoever else was a player that people thought was trouble they could convert.
Neil Warnock could get him out of it.
Well, certainly, you mentioned direction of travel. I mean, Claudio will be in another direction of travel sooner than later, because since 1990...
And paid for it as well.
He's managed Cagliari, Napoli, Fiorentina, Valencia, Atletico Madrid, Chelsea, Valencia, Parma, Juventus, Roma, Inter, Monaco, Greece, Leicester, Nantes, Fulham, Roma, Sampdoria and Watford. Wonder where's next.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.